Welcome to the Go Rhody podcast. I'm your host, Scott Brand. We are the premier podcast for Rhody basketball, but we're also making some noise with the Atlantic 10. Dave Jablonski is here. Today's topic is Archie Miller, the glory years from 2011 to 2017. And I can't think of a better person to have on than Dave Jablonski because he is one of the best beat writers in college basketball in the nation. I'm really not exaggerating. Maybe I'm embarrassing you, but I'm not exaggerating.
Well, thank you.
And you write for the Dayton Daily News, and you just look like this is your dream job, and you're having fun every day. Am I right about that?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. My family has a lot of history with UD. My grandpa was a season ticket his whole life. My parents had their wedding reception at UD Arena. So, just the stars just aligned.
Well, I'd like to start by asking you, how was Archie able to be such a giant killer and beat teams like Syracuse, Gonzaga, Ohio State, make the Elite Eight, make the Sweet 16? What was his secret sauce?
He had great players and great teams. He was the one who coined the term true team during those years because they didn't have a guy who was going to score 20 a night very often. They had some big scorers, but they didn't have an Obi Toppin or a Deron Holmes. Didn't really have future NBA guys. Though Jordan Siebert was one guy who did make it to the NBA, as did Charles Cook, but nobody who would have a big NBA career. But they had guys like Scoochie Smith and Kendall Pollard, Kyle Davis, Deshaun Pierre, Vee Sanford. I can name all the guys.
Yeah.
All the guys from that era. It's a long list, but really good teams that were solid on both sides of the ball. Obviously Archie himself made a lot of great moves throughout those years, but I think he would even say it starts with the players.
Yeah, and thinking of the players, they didn't have the 4-star players, if I'm correct. They had a lot of 3-star players, and I think he started, or one of the first coaches to start positionless basketball, because it wasn't the center that was he had a lot of 6'5", 6'6" guys and a solid point guard, just like he has this year with Rhode Island. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's fairly accurate. The Elite Eight team had, 3 big guys who were all kind of role players: Matt Cavanaugh, Devin Scott, Jalen Robinson. None of them were going to put up double doubles very often or put up 20 points. The big scorers were on that team were Jordan Siebert, Vee Sanford, Devin Oliver, all guys, big guards who could play inside and out. And then the teams after that, the same thing. Siebert and Pierre were the big scorers for a while, and after that, later on it was Scoochie, Kendall Pollard too.
I'm looking at his body of work, Elite Eight run. Was he the best coach ever at Dayton?
Well, I think Archie would, and everybody else would give that title to Don Donaher, who Dayton's winningest coach, took the Flyers to the national championship game in 1967. Spent 25 years there. Had an Elite Eight run in 1984. He just passed away this past spring. He coached Anthony Grant. Nobody else had the NCAA tournament. The success as far as consistency. 4 straight years had never been done at Dayton, even by Coach Donaher. So that was a tremendous accomplishment, and even Anthony Grant hasn't approached that in his first 7 seasons. So that is the number one reason Dayton fans would rank Archie so high. Plus 5 NCAA tournament wins in 2 years. I mean, they made the Elite Eight and then almost made the Sweet 16 the next year. So he certainly. As far as the coaches who haven't had a long run like Coach Donaher, he's at the top of that list.
How about for the Atlantic 10? I'm putting him right up there as one of the best coaches with his what he did statistically.
I mean, there have been some good ones.
Others.
John Calipari back in the day.
Okay, that's that. That is
hard to top his run in the 90s with UMass. And so many coaches have gone on to like Dan Hurley. Gone on to big things outside the A-10.
Have you been watching him at Rhode Island and seeing a little bit and to have some impressions on how he's doing?
I can't say I've watched the games. I certainly follow how they're doing. And I've seen them, I saw them beat Dayton 2 years ago up there. I was at that game, and
Yeah.
they lost big at UD Arena last year. So yeah, I know it's been a struggle, and I know they're off to a great start this year, but it's such a hard thing building a roster. I talked to Archie at A10 Media Day, and I talked to a bunch of coaches about that, about it, roster construction in the day of the transfer portal. And all these guys are facing new challenges. It does seem like you're kind of rolling the dice every year, rebuilding the roster. So it's good to see them have success early this year. I know they haven't played the toughest of schedules, but I mean, 8-0 or 9-0 is 9-0. That's tough to do, and there were a couple good wins in there, including he got his revenge against Chris Mack. Beat
Yeah.
Charleston pretty good. Now, 2015, Dayton lost by nearly 30 points to Xavier in the
Wow.
Advocare Invitational, the tournament in Orlando. So I'm sure Archie enjoyed beating Mack the way he did.
Yeah, that was a big win, and
Yeah, that was a good win.
a very good
Sure,
team.
Charleston will be good this year.
What we're seeing though with him, I can understand there's a lot of pressure, as I was saying, this year to win, and he's risen to the challenge, and I think he deserves a lot of the credit. Just these are his players now. He
Mm-hmm.
decided to retain four players. I call them the core four. They're mostly doing really well. He decided to take back Sebastian Thomas as the point guard, and it wasn't a slam dunk at the time because he didn't do very well his first 2 years at Rhode Island. Sure, he was one of the best transfers, but he was at Albany, so you have to think that, was it the competition? And he was a Division I player, and there's a lot of players that weren't that strong. I did watch a lot of the videotape. So he made that decision, and he's resting the team on Sebastian Thomas. He said that in Andy Katz's interview before the season. So with those points, and then just winning the close games, making the adjustments, it's nothing like the first 2 years. I think maybe he's resembling what he did at Dayton. He had to have been, I know he had great players, but he had to be a great coach, game coach, and outsmart the other coaches and have the teams prepared and build. And it looks like he's doing the same thing again now. We're bringing in a lot of 3-star recruits. We're not going for the 4 stars right now. We're beating the Hofstras instead of beating the Syracuses or Georgia. Mm-hmm. So I think he's got his stride right now, and we'll see. But it was a tough 2 years, and the pressure was on. I don't know. Rhode Island fans are not the most patient people. Here's a question for you. Which is a better team? And it seems obvious that 2014, and I think that was your first year covering them, was better than 2015. I question that. And I say the 2015 team was his best body of work.
Oh, nobody would argue with that. That was his best coaching job. They basically had a 7-man team for 2/3 of the year. So they lost 2 big men who were kicked off the team in December. At that point, they were having an okay season. They, won 2, beat Texas A&M, had lost at Arkansas, but honestly, the team got a lot better. And when everybody expected the season to fall apart, suddenly with this very short roster, somehow they found a way. They had the 6 guys, 6 scholarship guys were all really good players. Scoochie Smith, who just went into the Dayton Hall of Fame last weekend. He was a sophomore. Kendall Pollard and Kyle Davis, 2 sophomores. All 3 of those guys were part of the winningest class in school history. You had Deshaun Pierre, who was a junior, one of the great players in school history. Jordan Siebert was the senior, the big scorer on that team. But then the 7th guy was a walk-on of Bobby Warley. Nobody expected him to play, and he ended up giving him solid minutes throughout the season. They also had Daryl Davis, who was a freshman. He turned out to be, a 1,000-point scorer. So, 6 guys who all could be in the Dayton Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Someday, and then a walk-on. And they survived that season and won 27 games, made it to the A10 championship game, earned an at-large bid. And, we're up against Oklahoma in the second half. in the second round with the Sweet 16 berth on the line, and easily could have won that game. So no one would argue that he did a better job coaching that team than in 2014, because that 2014 team was falling apart in January before they got together. Yeah, they lost 4 straight in the A10. Season was on the brink, and he did a great job getting that team back on the right track. And they made a great run to get an at-large bid, and then had the great NCAA tournament victories against Ohio State and Syracuse and Stanford. But 2015, even now, all these years later, is still his best job. I talked to him about that 2015 team at Media Day because the 10-year anniversary is coming up, so I'm doing a piece on the.
Oh, really? I can't wait.
His eyes lit up. He really loved talking about that team 10 years later. So I know it's a special team to him even now.
I'm waiting for ESPN to do a 30 for 30.
I don't know if we're going to get that. Dayton fans have watched
what they call, a lot of people say 6 players, and they ignore the 7th player when I've been doing my research. But how do you do that? There's no load management when you have 6 players at all.
No, that was the theme all season. Are you guys tired? Are you tired? No, we're not tired. We're not tired. There was one game at VCU. They had a big road win down there, and it looked like they were going to have to play a couple extra walk-ons because of foul trouble, and didn't quite get to that. But yeah, that was one of the things we talked about at Media Day, that game.
And he's not someone who is a screamer, or is that right? I know he once threw a clipboard.
This, I don't know if he's a screamer. I don't know if he's a screamer at the players. He certainly can get after officials, and very intense in the huddle. That's the way I would describe him. I think there was a moment where he broke a clipboard or something. There was that moment last year at UD where he was out on the court and Kobe Bryant almost ran into him. I know Archie likes to get in the middle of action a little bit. He got a lot of grief for that, but Travis Ford from St. Louis had just done the same thing in the previous game, so it was kind of like a contagious or something.
Sometimes I think they do that on purpose just to show a little fire.
Maybe. I think he just got surprised by the fast break, kind of like the towel guys who are mopping the sweat stains up and they can't get off the floor in time. And he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But yeah, very intense. Same with the media. He was really, I always say this about Archie, he was great. I don't think he ever really loved to do media, but he was really good at it. He would give you good insight into the team, the players. You knew, he would never throw guys under the bus or anything, but you knew what he was thinking about. Always would come to, the midweek media sessions drenched in sweat, just off the treadmill or something like that.
Yeah, that's how he stays fit.
We're just getting in his way of a busy day, the media stuff. But
is he a beloved coach? He certainly isn't earning that, but
people appreciate him. I mean, beloved. He did leave, and he left for Indiana. Okay. I mean, most logical fans wouldn't penalize him for that, but plenty do, of course, because they think Dayton is, the end all be all, or I want to see Dayton as a stepping stone. But every job is a stepping stone. Even if he had great success in Indiana, that would have been a stepping stone to somewhere too.
Connecticut is a stepping stone if Hurley decided.
Yeah, exactly. If he had gone to Connecticut,
exactly. Every job
to the Lakers, every job's a stepping stone.
That's so true.
So, he I think he got a polite applause at UD Arena last year. There really wasn't a good chance to judge it because they introduced him and then immediately moved on, and there was hard to tell how people really reacted. There was no opportunity to either boo him or give him a standing ovation. So, but most people really appreciate the job he did, and I'm sure a lot of people are still rooting for him, except when they play Dayton.
Yeah, and Coach Ryan Gregory, how was he viewed? He left him some pretty good players to first year.
Yeah, he did.
20 games, and then 17. Was there doubt the second year when I know Dayton must be a impatient fan base like Rhode Island, so and there's a lot of cynical fans out there. What after the second season were people saying, is this going to work out or not? And then look what happened.
I think there were. Yeah, they had a pretty good year his first year, although made the NIT and then they came down that second year. So yeah, definitely there were a lot of question marks. And even in his third season, they had a great start where they beat Gonzaga in the Maui Invitational and then almost upset Baylor, beat California by a lot. A really good performance out there. Had a victory against Georgia Tech, but like we mentioned earlier, they had that tough stretch in the start of the A10 play. Lost 4 out of 5. The season they were reeling. I mean, it looked like they were going nowhere after the great start, but they got hot at the end of the year, played themselves into at-large territory, and the rest is history. So there were definitely question marks after his second season.
And here's the second season, but then you have the magical run, and I was talking to the season ticket holder last night, and the big break he thought was Stanford beating Kansas. That's how they were able to get to the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
With that,
although they had already gotten 2 big wins at that point, so if they'd lost in the Sweet 16, it would have been, not the biggest deal. The Elite Eight was nice, but I mean, it still would have been a special season.
And what did you think about the Obama tweet? Not to Archie, but to Dayton.
Devin Oliver. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. One of the many little sidebars I wrote during those weeks. That was fun.
I think people are looking at this issue wrong. They're saying tying Archie's success to Scoochie Smith. But if you look at his numbers, at least the first 2 years, Scoochie Smith, they were pedestrian, including the second. He was a freshman Elite Eight or a sophomore, one of the
he was a freshman, but he was like 7th or 8th guy on that team. He was the backup point guard.
Yeah. And how would you describe Scoochie Smith as a player?
Well, I mean, they helped each other for sure. I mean, Scoochie was a big part of Archie's success and vice versa. Scoochie had a really good year sophomore year too, I believe, because that was the team that won 27 games. I'd have to look at his numbers, but he definitely put up bigger numbers as a junior and senior. And it was really that whole class, him, Kendall Pollard, and Kyle Davis. Archie rode those guys to a lot of wins. But, I'm sure they would all credit him too. It goes both ways. One of them were big recruits. I mean, I think maybe Scoochie was a top 150 guy, but all 3-star guys probably. That he developed into all-time greats in the program. Kyle Davis was the guy who played the most early on as a freshman because he was so good on defense. That got him on the court. Yeah. And then Kendall Pollard had a big game in the Elite Eight, came out of nowhere against Stanford, and he was the most improved player in the A10 his sophomore year, and he was a beast. All those guys were fun to watch and just great teammates.
Scoochie Smith is still admired, at least by Rhode Island fans, so that they view him as just an elite player, and a lot of what he does isn't shown in the box score. I think it's just having the control of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to Archie, the valuing the point guard, and Andy Katz said that he thinks Sebastian Thomas is emulating what Archie did. A lot of people want to play for Archie because of his success he was a point guard, wasn't he, at North Carolina State?
Yeah, great player, great shooter.
And Brian Gregory, we're just wrapping up now. How did you view him, or the fans view him as a coach?
I think mostly I didn't cover the program when he was here, but
yeah,
they've written many times about his tenure. Mixed feelings. I mean, toward the end, they weren't doing enough. They weren't, they won the NIT championship, and to the nice consolation prize. But Dayton fans would rather lose in the first round in the NCAA tournament, like most programs, than win the NIT championship. I think he made two tournament appearances in his tenure, but
yes, that's right.
They weren't going. Program wasn't really on the upswing at the end. So when he left for Georgia Tech, people loved Brian Gregory as a person, but didn't exactly view his tenure as the biggest success. And he didn't have a lot of success at his other stops too. But certainly people liked him and speak fondly of him now.
My last question, you're going to love this. Is there any way you could see Archie returning to Dayton maybe in the last years of his...
I guess anything's possible. It seems really unlikely.
Yeah.
I don't know in what circumstances that would happen. But
Yeah.
you know, anything's possible. He has a lot of success at Rhode Island. You'd think he'd probably want to stay because of his bouncing around as he has, making that big jump to Indiana. He knows now that the grass isn't always greener. But I don't know, he's a pretty big competitor. So if he took Rhode Island to great success and was being chased by those jobs, he might chase it again. I don't know, but it's hard to imagine him coming back to Dayton unless he's I don't see that happening in any possible
Yeah.
scenario.
Okay, here it is. I'm asking you for a favor. Are you ready
Yeah.
for it?
Yeah.
How can I get Archie Miller on my podcast?
Oh my gosh. Just
Not
ask
gonna
him nicely. I don't know.
happen.
I don't know.
I've been so loyal for 3 years.
Yeah, just keep asking. Wait for I don't know. Just keep asking. That's all you can do, I guess.
Yeah. I haven't asked
Him
him.
every day, but maybe once a year or something like that. I don't know.
Well, next time you talk to him, tell him I said hi.
I did a book on the history of UD Arena, and I texted Archie see if he would give me an interview. He did not.
Oh,
He didn't get back to me. So he's been great when I meet him in person and talk to him, and I actually gave him a copy of that book too. But so you know,
yeah.
I said I don't think he loves doing media stuff. So
No.
don't feel bad if he says no. He's a busy guy, and he's good at the media stuff when he does it, but he probably doesn't do a ton of it.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, we'll keep working on that.
Coaches out there who don't say much. Archie isn't one of those. So if you do get him on, you'll get good stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. Thanks so much, Dave, and
All right.
doing what you're doing. Everyone is loving your reporting, and you're the first person. You're tweeting, and great job.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Great career. Thank you.